JJK 264 was insane. We have so much to talk about, but spoilers beware. I mean, come on, we finally got Yuji's domain expansion, and this panel goes so hard, and I just have so much to dive into on this. But truthfully, probably should wait a few days just to do more research, let things process, see what the official chapter says, if it does reveal anything else new. But I just can't wait. We got to dive in because what I found so far is absolutely fascinating. So let's get into it. All right, so what do we know about this domain expansion? Well, first and foremost, we don't have its name yet. All that was said in the chapter was domain expansion, so we can't glean anything from that yet. However, what we did get was Yuji's Mudra, or his hand sign for this domain, and this tells us actually a ton. So, as I'm sure you guys all know by now, Gege takes a ton of inspiration from Buddhism, including all of the domain expansion hand signs, and Yuji's is really interesting. So this mudra that Yuji is using is Shitigarba's, and y'all forgive me on these pronunciations, I'm gonna do the best I can, but Shitigarba is crazy. Like this character, it just makes so much sense within the confines of JJK. So let's get into who this guy is. All right, so we're going to have a little read along time here, and I'm going to pause and explain things as we go. So the Shitigarbha is a bodhisattva primarily revered in Buddhism and is usually depicted as a monk. So first of all, what is a bodhisattva? Well, if you watched my recent Gojo video, then you already know. But basically, this is a term for somebody who is enlightened that delays their own enlightenment in order to help others. It's from a compassion to ease the suffering of others, and Yuji fits that perfectly. So Shittigarbha is a bodhisattva, and his name is translated as Earth Treasury, Earth Store, Earth Matrix, or Earth Womb. That one's certainly interesting. And the Shittigarbha is known for his vow to take responsibility for the instruction of all beings in the six worlds between the death of Buddha and the rise of Maitreya, as well as his vow to not achieve Buddhahood until all hells are empty. And okay, this one is jam-packed. So let's break this down, right? Shittigarbha takes responsibility for basically taking care of everyone between the death of Buddha and the rise of the Maitreya, which is essentially like the next Buddha. So Buddha, who was Gojo in this story, the direct parallel, Yuji is supposed to take care of the world after he dies and before the next one comes. Like, that again just fits to the T here. It also has some interesting implications for potentially Gojo's return if he does come back once more. Like, Yuji is the one to bridge the gap between those times. And again, just being this selfless person to help others, the Bodhisattva, and again, is the one to not achieve Buddhahood until all hells are emptied. Another way to think of that could be until, you are able to purge even the worst of us, which the one to teach sukuna about love is. If you guys have seen my theories there, I think that is going to be Yuji. This is just so fascinating and like literally couldn't fit better in my opinion. But the most interesting part remains. He is therefore often regarded as the bodhisattva of hell beings, as well as the guardian of children and the patron deity of deceased children and aborted fetuses in Japanese culture. Need I remind you about the entire history between Yuji and Sukuna? Sukuna killed his brother in the womb. So he is like literally the patron saint of trying to absolve, or maybe absolve's not the right word, but like deal with that sin. If he is going to purge the hell and be the bodhisattva of the devils, basically, Sukuna is the one he would need to deal with, which is what he is seemingly doing in this domain expansion. This is literally insane. And now for some information on the Maitreya, who again is basically the next coming of the Buddha. And interestingly, in Tibetan Buddhism, he is known as the Lord of Love, or the Noble Loving One. And that's certainly interesting given, again, the theme of the one to teach Sukuna about love is. And I know I just said that the Shittigarbha was Yuji, but that is his mudra, that's his hand sign. Gege isn't necessarily making a one-to-one for everything on the Shittigarbha to be Yuji, right? It's an inspiration, so we'll have to see where exactly Gege goes with it. But my point is, the Maitreya, this Lord of Love, could also be representative of Yuji, or it could be representative of Gojo when he comes back, right? Perhaps Gojo is the one to teach Yuji about, or Sukuna about love. I'm still leaning Yuji, but it's certainly possible, right? Additionally, the Maitreya is supposed to be the fifth and final Buddha of the current age, and his teachings will be focused around re-establishing the Buddha's Dharma on Earth, which I just thought this was interesting in terms of what Gojo wanted for the future of Jujutsu Society, right? He thought they were all corrupt, he wanted to tear it down and build up the next generation to do things right. That's kind of in line with this, in my opinion. And then the arrival of the Maitreya is prophesied to occur during an era of decline, which, you know, not too much to dive into here, but obviously, like, when things are the most dire, this person will come back. And finally, the name Maitreya is derived from the Sanskrit word meaning friendship. The power of friendship, no, but I just thought this was also interesting in light of both Yuji and Gojo, considering that it's obviously Yuji's number one priority, others. And if Gojo does come back and has this awakening to realize who he truly is, he is, you know, Gojo because he's the strongest, or is he the strongest because he's Gojo? It's the latter. He's the strongest because of who he is, and now he has purpose, realizing that he wants to fight for others, for his friends, not his own self-satisfaction. So again, not saying either the Yuji or the Gojo, or maybe it's even somebody else that could be the Maitreya, you know, all of those are possible in my opinion, but some really interesting interpretations based on those different assumptions. Now that we're done talking about the hand sign, let's talk about the actual domain expansion and what we see. And clearly it is a train station. And actually, this is a real-life train station in the Iwate Prefecture, which happens to be where Gege is from, but not only that, also happens to be the location of the urban legend that Gege based Sukuna on. Now, I made a video a long time ago talking about that. I might do a refresher, but Ryomen Sukuna was a historical mythological figure in Japan, but it was also like a creepy pasta on a website called 2chan back in the day. And it took place in Iwate Prefecture, so super interesting. And as you might have seen by now, also Season 1's opener was Yuji and Sukuna on this train together. So Gege has had this in his back pocket since the beginning, you beautiful bastard. Then we also have this parallel, Gojo arriving at the airport, Sukuna arriving at the train station. So could this similarly be a flash forward, like with Gojo, where Yuji's domain already happened and this is the aftermath, with Sukuna in limbo or something similar? Totally possible, but right now I'm leaning that this is Yuji's domain. So what does this all mean? What can we glean about Yuji's domain expansion? Well, the one thing we know for sure is that whatever the effect is, it's directly targeting Sukuna's soul, which was the entire buildup of this chapter, right? Sukuna was even talking about how dangerous Yuji's soul attacks were, but it doesn't matter if they can't hit. And then of course we have Gojo bring up the point about the sure hit of a domain, then we get the domain, right? So whatever's happening is happening directly to Sukuna's soul, which I think adds up and explains why we see Sukuna in his Yuji form, because Yuji is directly interacting with the soul and perhaps has even trapped Sukuna once more inside of himself, which is why he looks like him again and why Yuji is like, hey, let's go. Presumably they're going to board the train. So many implications here that I don't know if I want to get into this. It might be a whole other video, but you know, it feels like Yuji has trapped Sukuna, at least for the time being, back in his soul due to getting to directly interface with it thanks to his domain expansion. So did he somehow snatch it out of Megami and put it back in himself? I don't know exactly, but the way he's in Yuji's body again makes me feel like he's trapped. Also, the fact that he is seemingly not happy and is not fighting back, right? He might not be able to. There might be like an imposed restriction on this domain similar to Higuruma's with no violence. Now, I'm not saying there can't be violence and it's not the exact same thing, but like a similar phenomena going on. So what does this domain do? Where is this train going? Well, if we look to the Shitigarba and what they represent, the fact that they are meant to purge the hells, be the bodhisattva of these hell people, then if Yuji is going to somehow purify or absolve, and I don't mean like save Sukuna and he's going to be a good guy or anything, but whatever that process is, perhaps the train facilitates it. And maybe Yuji is even traveling to the past, or they are going to examine parts of Sukuna's soul, because very very interestingly, in this season 2 promotional image, we have a train with the present and the past. So maybe Gege was foreshadowing about something like that, and it would be fascinating to learn more about Sukuna and what happened during the Heian era. Now, I do want to re-emphasize that I don't see like this being a power of friendship moment. In order to purge the hells and deal with the hell beings, it could be that Yuji is just killing him. Like that is how he is purging the world of it, and less of like forgiving or saving him in that way, if that makes sense. Because I mean, that seems to be the entire thing Gege has been setting up, right? Like Yuji was from the start of this story meant to be kind of this sacrificial lamb that will take Sukuna out with him. So perhaps this train is even symbolic of them both like dying, which kind of feels like the right tone for what we see in Yuji in that season 1 opener where he's like sleeping. But I don't know. This is just all so fascinating to me. And to build on this, just like Kenjaku said, with either Yuji or Sukuna alive, the chain of curses will never end. So it really feels like we've been building towards Yuji taking himself out to rid the world of this. You know, again, just like the Shitigarba purging the hells. Now, even with all of that being the case, I still don't really see this moment being the end of Sukuna. I feel like there's still things that have to happen before he has his final goodbye. So what does that mean? Is Sukuna going to somehow come back from this? I don't know. I can't tell you the exact shape it's going to take, but I just don't think it's time yet. So I can't imagine this being the legitimate end. I do fully expect to see the merger. Now, obviously, even if Sukuna were taken out, Megami has the authority to start it, so it could be possible that way. There are other avenues. We also know that there is an additional Sukuna finger out there still, whether it is consumed by Rika or otherwise. There is one more, which means even if this did fully destroy this version of Sukuna that we're seeing, a part of him still remains somewhere. So I do think that it's not over completely yet, and I am just so excited to see where Gege goes with all of this. In any case, I'm actually really glad we get to see Yuji Sukuna again, because I absolutely love that version of him. And like I mentioned at the start of this video, maybe I should have waited a few more days to think some more, do some more research, because I feel like I'm going to have more to say about all of this. So don't be mad at me if I put out more videos on this same subject. But in the meantime, please let me know y'all's thoughts down below or in the Discord. I would love to hear all of your theories or analysis on what exactly is going on here. And as always, y'all, thank you so much for watching.